Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Corinne Stevens. I'm the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay's Business Partnerships Manager. I would like to welcome everyone to our Lunch and Learn webinar this afternoon. Our webinar is hosted by the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay's Businesses for the Bay Membership Association, the Chesapeake Bay Program, and the B4B program's generous sponsors. The Businesses for the Bay Membership Association, or B4B, helps businesses create and succeed in environmental initiatives that help our local rivers, streams, and ecosystems while getting recognized for their voluntary initiatives by the Trusted Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay. This webinar is designed for both the B4B member looking for new project ideas, as well as folks who are not part of the Businesses for the Bay program yet. Any business in the Chesapeake Bay watershed can get recognized for taking actions described today through Businesses for the Bay. Before we begin, I would like to remind everyone that your computers should already be on mute. If you have questions throughout the webinar, please type them into the chat box in the chat field. You can open the presentation as a full screen using the little icon on the top right of the presentation slide. It looks like a square with arrows coming out of it. The presentation will last approximately 45 minutes, and then we will answer your questions in the last 10 minutes. After the webinar, you will receive a survey via email. Your response will help guide future B4B webinar opportunities, as well as give us useful feedback from today's webinar. We appreciate you taking the time to complete it. We are recording this webinar and will post it to the Businesses for the Bay website later this week. The Chesapeake Bay watershed has historical and cultural sites from significant points in history, land treasured by a community, and landscapes that are loved all over the nation. Today, in our last of 5 webinars in the Chesapeake Bay Program B4B webinar series, we'll learn how businesses can help conserve land and make a difference in the community. At the end of this webinar, we'll post a website link where you can listen to all 5 of the 2008 webinars in this series. That link will also be included in the email that you'll receive after the webinar. With that, I would like to introduce you to Caitlin Johnstone, the Communications and Outreach Specialist for the Chesapeake Bay Program. Caitlin works to increase collaboration and involvement both internally and externally for the restoration and vitality of the watershed. In addition to her work with the Bay Program, Caitlin is a longtime data specialist for a botanist and consulting forest repair, working to implement best management practices and catalog plants and pollinators throughout the United States. Take it away, Caitlin.
Great. Welcome, everyone. For those of you that have been around with us, you know that this is number 5 in our webinar series. So it's a webinar on the 5 themes of action for Businesses for the Bay, which are the same 5 themes of action for the Watershed Agreement, which is the guiding document for the Chesapeake Bay Program. So we've talked about water quality, abundant life, climate change, engaged communities, and we're going to talk about the last of those action areas, which is conserved lands. So what we're looking at here in this picture, this is a picture from the vernal pools in Cumberland County, Pennsylvania. And we'll get into that a little later in the webinar, but I want you to see that this is a picture of a conserved land, and reflected back are school children sitting at the water and learning about protected lands and getting outdoors and education. So that's a major theme as we walk through conserved lands. They're not just lands that are set off to the side that no one can touch, that are not being used. They're active spaces for plants and animals to live and thrive, and for humans to benefit as well, which includes our business communities. So we'll talk through some ways that you can be involved in that and help your business move forward by protecting these conserved lands. But first, we'll walk through a little bit about our 2 organizations and how they connect together. Unless otherwise noted throughout the presentation, business highlight slide photos are supplied by the member page of Businesses for the Bay. So they're the pictures that these businesses have sent to Corinne. And all other pictures throughout this webinar are Chesapeake Bay Program Flickr photos. All right, so Businesses for the Bay. Most of you know this if you're Business for the Bay members. Being part of this helps you create staying power in your communities, helps you have your voices heard, and it lets you tie together helping the environment, helping your community, and improving your long-term place as a business in the Chesapeake watershed while also helping the environment. So if we look at this little triangle, it shows you how Businesses for the Bay is connected. So you connect to the local community, which includes your employees, your clients, the community at large, as well as enhancing your environmental goals. We all live, work, and play in the Chesapeake watershed, which brings us to our Businesses for the Bay mission statement, that you encourage businesses within the Bay watershed to take voluntary and measurable actions to support protection and restoration of the Bay. The role in the watershed is through voluntary and measurable actions that help the public and you as a business understand and improve your role in the watershed. Those same actions guide with the themes of the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Agreement, which helps protect the Chesapeake Bay watershed. We'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. It's the largest estuary in the United States. So it starts all the way up in New York, goes all the way down to Virginia, and it has the highest land-to-water ratio of any coastal body, 14:1. So that's why our actions on the land have such a big impact on the Bay's health. So whether it's through home, work, vacation, recreation, the clients, customers, and every individual that a watershed business comes into contact with has a significant stake in the health and beauty of the watershed. And one of the ways that we can have an effect is through being a part of Businesses for the Bay. And there are a couple different ways to do that. You don't have to be a business to be part of Businesses for the Bay. It's a network that helps everyone engage with our business community. So members can be any size business. All businesses are eligible, and they have to commit to actions that are taken, which we'll walk through some of those actions and provide examples of businesses that are taking those actions later in this webinar. But if you're not a business, you can still be involved. You can be a sponsor, so maybe you're not ready to jump in and create green teams and take those actions, but you can monetarily support business member associations. Or you can be a networking partner, which is like the Chesapeake Bay program. What I am. It's a government or nonprofit that participates in events with Businesses for the Bay and helps to raise awareness. All right, so the 5 themes that we've gone through, the 5 themes of action for Businesses for the Bay, and the 5 themes that govern the Watershed Agreement are abundant life, which covers fisheries and habitats, climate change resiliency, clean water, communities, and conserved lands. We've gone through webinars for all of these. They will be available online for folks to watch, and we'll have that link closer to the end of the webinar. Right, so all the different organizations and associations and networks you can be involved in, and projects and proposals and resolutions, it can seem really confusing, but all of those rules and actions and efforts in the watershed are tied together a lot more than it seems. So the 5 themes for B4B are the exact same 5 themes for the Watershed Agreement. So the things that you do in Businesses for the Bay are furthering the efforts of the Chesapeake Bay Program Partnership. For conserved lands, which is what we're about to jump into, that covers 3 outcomes: protected lands, land use methods and metrics, and land use options evaluation. So methods and metrics studies the impact of changing how land is used so that local communities and businesses can be informed when they're making decisions about development or zoning or land use changes in their area. Options evaluation lets you take that knowledge and figure out ways to put it into effect. So it's policy options, it's incentives, it's planning tools to get you where you want to go based on all of that information that's been learned. Protected lands is the actual measurable goal for the lands themselves. So for the land itself. So the outcome for protected lands is to protect an additional 2 million acres throughout the watershed by 2025. And that's federal, state, and local level. And it's amazing how many different ways those lands can be protected and what that means. And we're going to walk through several of those options. All right, so we are about to go through those actions that drive improving the environment and the economy in this area that is so closely tied to the land itself. We'll talk a bit about what it means to have conserved lands and how they can help. So all the different ways that they're involved and why we would want to conserve and protect lands. And then we'll get into action for doing so. So transformation and economic benefit I'm going to talk about. The picture that you're looking at here is also from that Forest Pools Preserve that we saw in the same slide in Cumberland County. So this is a spring peeper, which is the little frog that you'll hear as springtime starts. It's very, very loud. It makes a lot of sounds. It's almost like the crickets in the summertime. There's a cacophony from spring peepers. And these little guys live in vernal pools, which are the little depressions that you find in a forest floor that fill up with water for only a few months out of the year. And then they dry up again, and then they fill up again the next year. So they're really important habitats for our amphibians. Because the water dries up, it can't support any fish. So salamanders and frogs, they come and lay their eggs in these vernal pools, and they know they're not going to be eaten by all of these hungry fish. So almost all of our amphibians in the watershed utilize these vernal pools. If we don't know what's out there, then wait, let me back up and do this another way. So, vernal pools. The community that was around this Forest Pools Preserve in Cumberland County did not know that these benefits were available, that they had all these educational areas, that they had this access to nature, because it was not a protected land. So for a very long time, the area that used to have these vernal pools was used as a trash heap by the community. They would throw their trash bags in the depressions that used to fill up with water and used to be home for all of these amphibians. It was purchased by the Land Conservancy, so it's 70 acres that became this preserve. It was purchased by, or not the Land Conservancy, the Nature Conservancy in 2007, and they engaged the community for 3 years to do trash cleanups voluntarily and monitor the vernal pools and help bring back that habitat. Now, the community isn't living near trash. It's come back to life. All of the vernal pools have started to fill up again. Amphibians are using them for reproduction. You have all of this noise and creatures out there, and then the local community is able to use it as a nature walk, and the local school is able to take children out there and be able to learn about nature and the environment. So it has been a tremendous boon for this community to have this swatch of land turned into a protected area. The transformation that happens for a community can be incredible. There are also economic benefits that are out there. And that's where we get into you don't know what you don't know. So amphibians are really unique little creatures. They're land and water, and they kind of toe that line. So the way that they function and the way that they've evolved is very unique. And some of that has a real benefit to humans. So what they found is that amphibian skin has a myriad of different types of peptides, and those peptides that are not found elsewhere are being used as possible medical cures for a bunch of different human diseases. So they're being studied to see how they can benefit humans into the future. It's already being used in some painkillers and high blood pressure medications. as well as to block HIV transmission and other bacterial strains because of the way that they use their skin to be able to breathe. So studying that technology has helped us move human health forward as well. And without these protected lands that keep these amphibians safe and give them a place to reproduce, we lose those potential benefits. So we really need to protect their habitat. Outside of medicine, amphibians eat insects, and most of them are pest insects. So having a protected area that has vernal pools near our agricultural lands benefits those crops, because all of those pest insects that would devastate those crops are being decimated by all of the amphibians that live in those vernal pools. So it helps to minimize the spread of disease, and it helps increase agricultural production. There are also health benefits of having these natural areas around. So they can be intangible health benefits, mental and emotional health benefits. This picture in particular, so the Chesapeake Bay program maintains a Flickr account of over 10,000 photos. If you don't know what Flickr is, it's just a repository online of photographs from all over the place. They cover all 7 jurisdictions of the watershed and a lot of different environments, businesses, and people. Most of our photos have really detailed captions about all the events and locations, and so you can find more information about all the different happenings in the watershed. But this picture in particular, it has been viewed by hundreds of people and saved as a favorite by multiple people. But it has no caption in our Flickr account. You know nothing about it. It doesn't even tell you what the plant is, but it's being favorited. And it's because just looking at this picture it's peaceful and calming. It has greenery, it has the water droplets, and those mental health benefits of seeing green spaces makes a huge, huge difference in the health of people and in the health of employees. There was a study that was done out of the University of Washington by a social scientist and the U.S. Forest Service, and they found that having views of nature contributes to higher productivity in the workplace. The research shows that office workers that have a view of nature, even if they don't go outside, if they can see it from their window, they're better able to attend to tasks, report fewer illnesses, and have higher job satisfaction. It also lowers frustration and increases brain activity, kind of resembling meditation, just to be outside in a green space. And they did a study where they had people go out and walk and exercise, and some of them were in an indoor track, and some of them got to walk in a park. And moving in a green space versus being in a commercial area, all of the health benefits increased and blood pressure reduced. And it was the benefit of the green rather than just the exercise alone. So there are a lot of benefits to having green spaces around you. There's also the potential for health benefits for the future. So this actually just came out last month more than a month and a half, the end of September 2018, over in the University of Salford in Britain. They found that cockles, which are kind of like our clams, they're little mollusks that live in the water and you can eat them. They found that the sugar in those cockles was helping to be turned into a chemotherapy drug for children. And that was really beneficial because most chemotherapy treatments for children are watered down versions of adult ones. And so they attack cell division and growth cells, but children are still growing and they need those cells. So it's much more detrimental for a child. And the sugars that they found in these cockles are able to combat the cancer without as many side effects. So this is 2018. We've been researching and studying and having things for years and years and years. And just in the last 6 weeks, we've discovered something new. And it's from something that we see all the time. It's from cockles. So having these protected spaces, having the environment out there and protecting it not only helps land itself and all of these creatures, but has incredible benefits for humans as well. All right, and with these protected areas, you want to know that it's not just set aside where no one can go into it and, you know, the creatures run around and humans aren't a part of it. Conservation easements and protected lands allow people to go out and enjoy that conservation as well. So the photo that we're looking at here, this is the director of the Eastern Shore Land Conservancy, and he's out hunting for geese on Chino Farms in Chestertown, Maryland, which is in a conservation easement. So it means that that land is protected, it can't be developed, but it's still being used. So if you take retreats with your board of directors, or you plan trips for clients, or you do work in the community and for your employees, you can transfer your land to an easement. You'll get that good PR from protecting lands and the wildlife, but you'll still be able to use that land for you, your associates, the community at large, your business, and for leisure. We'll jump into some of those actions for protecting those lands. So one is to manage for habitat. You can help create wildlife corridors. So find out what thrives near you and manage for that wildlife in your area. So you can find a local nature group, master naturalists, Department of Natural Resources, any of those kinds of organizations, and get their expertise. They would be happy to help. And we can put information about finding a group in the chat box so you can check things out for your area. What we're looking at in this picture here is a tree planting in Ranson, West Virginia. And what happened there is the community wanted to put in a bicycle path for their people to be able to exercise, but they turned that bicycle path into a wildlife corridor by planting multiple trees and widening that space. They wanted it to be a more enjoyable experience for people, but the same things that people tend to love about nature also benefit the wildlife and the plants that live out there. So they turned this bicycle path into a wildlife corridor, and they helped the Carla Hardy West Virginia Tree Project, the Kakapan Institute, a bunch of volunteers, and the city of Ranson itself, as well as a landscape contractor. So there you have local government, business, the community, and a nature organization all work together and created this space that helps wildlife and people, and it provides shade and screening from the highway itself. So it beautified the town and helped everyone in the process. Doing these kinds of measures as your company can really help your standing in the community. So there was one instance where a company put in a dam into a river, and there were turtles that lived in that river, and by damming it up, the water level was going to rise. And so they worked with a nature organization when they were making changes to the way that land was used, and they built little turtle islands so that when the water rose, the turtles could crawl onto the islands and they would have a safe place to be. And then the story, instead of being about changing the environment and the damage it was done, by a business working with a nature organization and the community and being conscious of their place in the environment, the story became how incredible that company was when they take measures, which really helps your image in the community. Other ways that private businesses and communities work together, the right-of-ways that you see for electric companies that go through forests and natural areas. Some of the electrical and gas companies have been working with a nature organization and a contractor that turns those cut-through spaces, those right-of-ways, into native meadows. And so it provides habitat for birds, for fawns. It brought back some of our native bees and orchids, and it helped the business to save a lot of money because they weren't going out there and mowing constantly. And it improved the environment for all of those creatures and improved the visual for any community that went through. So having businesses, communities, and nature organizations work together benefits all the people involved as well as the natural world. Mow Cow and Grow Cow is a Business for the Bay member, and they're doing some of these managing for habitat actions. So they're a small landscaping business that takes a lot of actions. They partnered with a neighborhood to install and maintain a wildlife corridor that connected multiple habitats. So the land that you help with and the land that you work on, that you turn into a corridor, it doesn't necessarily have to be your own. You don't have to have a corporate space that is thousands of acres to be able to take these actions. So like Mow Cow, they worked with the neighborhood and all these individual areas to connect these fragmented spaces that made a much larger habitat for natural wildlife. You can also remove stream blockages that are in your area. So just like on land, when we have fragmented areas of land that the animals can walk through, we have fragmented waterways that our aquatic creatures travel through, because there might be felled trees or dams or culverts, which are the spaces that are constructed, say, under bridges for a stream to still continue through. Those areas are blocked, then those streams are fragmented, so we can create wildlife corridors that connect fragments of land for large habitat, and we can create wildlife corridors in our aquatic waterways as well. So look at stream removal options that might be in your area. Most dams are privately owned, so that's something that your business does. Or not that your business does. If you have dams on your company-owned lands, that's a great way to make a difference to the wildlife in the community and help raise your social capital as well if you promote that story and what you're doing there. You can work with a local government or a transportation authority to fix culverts on lands that aren't owned by the businesses, work with the community, show that your business wants to make that difference. The Chesapeake Bay Program Partnership can help with those removals, both with technical assistance and possibly with funding. You can contact either the state representative or the NOAA representative on the fish work group, the stream health work group for the Bay program, and we can add that link into the chat there for you. Lockheed Martin is another one of our Business for the Bay members, and they are helping to do these conserved land actions as well. So they have a conservation easement of land that is next to their walkway. So there's a forest conservation easement, and they help conserve the existing land that is adjacent to that area with their employee walkway. So the easement that's there includes a settling pond and a wetland area with aquatic and marshland plants that grow around it. So they've worked to help maintain that natural environment, and instead of cutting through it, they have made their corporate area an expansion of it. So it beautifies their campus, makes it a really pleasant place for clients and the employees to be, as well as benefits the wildlife that live there. So I know we've used this term a couple of times. A conservation easement is a voluntary legal agreement between a landowner and a land trust or government agency that permanently limits the use of the land in order to protect its conservation values. So the landowners retain their rights, including the right to own and use the land, to sell it, to pass it down to heirs. It's not out of your hands if it's in a conservation easement. It just means that you're saying that you are setting this land to help conservation and the environment and wildlife into the future, but it can still be used in many different ways. So it just allows you to protect the land that you love. All right, the restrictions on conservation easements depend on what you're trying to protect. So you can work with the land trust and with the organizations to decide on what's right for you. So if you want to build a home on the land, or if you want to still keep it as productive farmland, or you want to turn it to wildlife habitat, all of those are options. And it depends on what's right for you and your business. Dancing Grass Designs is another B4B member. They went above and beyond by planting and maintaining native trees on their property to help create those wildlife corridors and protect or connect fractured forests. And they also helped with removing stream blockages, and they maintain a native meadow that's on their space with cover during winter time. So they've looked at not only is it fragmented physically, but is it fragmented throughout the seasons as we change from spring all the way through winter. Bavel Golf Club is one of our newest businesses for the Bay members. They are a golf course in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and they sustain a thriving community of native trees, shrubs, grasses, and wildflowers on their 255-acre property. So they have a conservation easement with the Virginia Department of Historic Resources. So you have this beautiful golf course that the community then uses, a lot of businesses use, but it's protecting the natural land and the environment around it at the same time. So you can see in this map, you have the golf course there in blue, and then you can see the proximity to the river and how they're able to work with their natural organizations and the Department of Historic Resources to protect and preserve that land. And it only seeks to improve the visual beauty of the golf course itself. So you're helping the business and you're helping the environment at the same time. The entire course is basically a best management practice. The land helps the business, but helps conservation as well. They've worked to maintain it so that all stormwater that falls on the Bavel golf course is turned back into the Bavel golf course. It's captured for storage and doesn't just run off into the Lynnhaven River. Because they've done such a great job of working with the community and working with the environment, they have actually had an eagle that has taken up the Bavel golf course. If you just click on it. Can you right click? We might be able to send it out later if we can't manage. What you were going to see here, I'll just tell you about as a little teaser. You'll be very excited to watch it later. It's a 20-second video. The Bavel Golf Club did such a great job with restoring their space that the habitat became a place for rehabilitated bald eagles. So in September of 2018, they released a rehabbed bald eagle onto the Bavel Golf Club that was taken in by the Wildlife Center of Virginia after it had fallen from its nest. So we'll be able to send this out after the webinar. The eagle walked out onto the golf course. You can see the beautiful space and thrown up into the air and released, and the eagle went off and set up roost in one of the trees. It was a really beautiful story, and again, that's going to help with social capital when you're able to tell that story to the community about what your business is doing to help the community itself as well as the wildlife around you. Right. If you don't have lands currently, you can purchase land for the purpose of conservation. What we're looking at here on the left, that is the Logan Hill Nature Preserve, or sorry, on the right, that's Logan Hill Nature Preserve. It's 300 acres of forest and meadows in Candor, New York, through the Finger Lakes Land Trust that's turned into a conservation easement. And you're seeing a flock of blackbirds take off from that space. So if you've got local wildlife living in your area, if it's these beautiful blackbirds, if it's a stand of beautiful red, orange sugar maples that makes for beautiful press images, or if you're in Virginia and you find out you've got the state salamander that lives on lands near you, then you can give those animals a forever home by purchasing the lands for conservation. Show photos of those beautiful spaces. Makes for really great images. So you can show photos of those spaces and your company logo and tie your company to these environmental benefits, which makes for easy marketing for your company to broaden your appeal to the community as well as knowledge of your company itself. If you have wetlands on your area, that's even better. Particularly here in the watershed, intense weather events threaten land, water, nature, industry, and the economy. And our intense weather events are only going to continue. So wetlands particularly are really, really helpful for disaster mitigation in intense storms. The financial savings from having wetlands in a space is incredible, actually. If you're interested in that, reach out to us. We can send you some articles on that topic. But if your company is able to purchase lands that have those wetlands and then announce that you have purchased this land as a permanent preserve, you're doing good for the world and it's doing good for your company. The other picture that we're looking at here is the Frederick Douglass National Historic Site. So that was his home in Cedar Hill, and it's presented as it looked in 1895 with a lot of his personal possessions on display. So if there's history in your area, say there's a historic building, there's a site where a local figure visited, then purchase lands for protection for that purpose. Preserve your cultural heritage in an area. And that opens a lot of doorways to working with different parts of your community and telling new stories about the way that your business can be part of that community at large. Lorens Garden Service, they offer an environmentally friendly option for a lot of different garden lovers, and they're certified by the Chesapeake Bay Landscape Professionals, and they are one of our Business for the Bay members. They maintain a 10-acre preservation parcel on their land that has a stream buffer with native shade trees. So that means that trees are planted next to the water, which helps protect the water and the stream and cools down the water. They are a preservation parcel. They worked with the Howard County, Maryland Turf to Trees program. So they're working with parts of the local community and organizations that were there to help make their water bodies more resilient. And because they are a garden area, they're able to showcase the knowledge and expertise that they offer, as well as the many beautiful plants that they sell through their business by managing the land in an appropriate way. All right, and conservation easements and protected lands in general are not just for the nature itself or the benefits if you're, say, a garden center, like Lorens, which is wonderful. You can also be a working farm, a hunting preserve, a running business, and that does not preclude you from conservation easements or protecting the lands. What we're looking at here is Butler Farms. It's in Inwood, West Virginia, and they have a beef cattle farm, an apple orchard, and they're a hunting preserve. So it is a thriving business that we're looking at and a working farm. The only thing that changes when they're preserving this land for the future and putting it into a conservation easement, showing that it's a protected land, is that it can't be turned into development. So for those of our businesses that have any combination of or similarity to some of the things that Butler Farms is doing, an easement is a way to ensure the grounds of your business and a large chunk of your business future into perpetuity because it's protected. So whether you're a business who is going to use those lands to take retreats, to do education with the community, or if you're preserving the actual business itself, there are many, many, many ways to protect lands and protect the future of our environment while improving the status and the economic potential of your business itself. If you have any questions about protected lands and conservation, we'll do those in the chat box. We've got a couple of minutes to cover those, and we're always available after the if you have follow-up questions in the emails. Just like we did today with conserved lands, all of our other webinar themes, clean water, abundant life, climate change, and engaged communities, we talked about what those mean, why they're important, how they work into the Watershed Agreement and the plans for the Bay program, as well as businesses for the Bay. Gave you tangible options for those actions and then examples of some of your networking partners. So in B4B, these are your business members that are taking all of these actions and are also available as resources through the Businesses for the Bay LinkedIn group, as well as the page itself. You can watch all 5 of these webinars. That's actually a clickable link up at the top to watch all 5. And we can also send that information out after the webinar as well. And this is the last webinar in our B4B Chesapeake Bay Program 2018 webinar series. But if you liked this webinar series, and if you have any suggestions for future ones or things that you would like to see, please reach out to us, reach out to Corinne, or any other topics that you're interested in. You can see my contact information here for the Chesapeake Bay program, as well as for our additional sites, so our teacher resources, as well as data on how we're doing in all of these action areas. You'll find that on Chesapeake Progress. And then we have the information for Corinne as well. I'm sure all of you are familiar with how to contact Corinne, and the website for Businesses for the Bay as well as the LinkedIn group. But if you're not, please use those resources. We've also, did we put in the Flickr account into our chat box?
Yes.
Oh, good, good. So Chesapeake Bay Program photos as well, you saw those throughout. They are available Creative Commons, which means that if you would like to use these beautiful images to help with some of the promotion that you're doing. So if you protect or conserve a land and you want to share some of those images, you can use all of the 10,000 Chesapeake Bay Program photos, and they're available there at the link that we put into the website or into the chat box.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Caitlin. Just a reminder, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box and we can answer them. We did receive a couple of questions prior to the webinar, so we're going to go ahead and answer some of those now. So Caitlin, what land conservation practices do you think are most beneficial to help increase water quality?
Well, there are a lot of different ways to conserve lands and help the environment. We walked through some of those today. So rejuvenating that land that used to be a trash heap and turning it into an area for vernal pools. but I would say one of the most beneficial would be forests. They're really helpful for protecting water quality and for capturing and filtering water and absorbing pollution from the air. And we all love using our freshwater streams, whether you're going out there to play or take your grandkids out, or you love to go fly fishing and you take clients out there. Our streams, and particularly the fish and creatures that live in them, really need them to be high quality and cool temperatures. And that's best helped by having a large expanse of trees near that water's edge. So if land or water quality, whichever one is, your bailiwick, I would say plant some trees near it.
Okay, great. What out of those conservation practices, if you're a farmer or a landowner, what do you think are the most easily adopted ones you can do?
Ooh, it depends on the kind of farm that you have, actually. So some of them are really simple. Like say it's, if you have those gullies going down your fields from intense rain, then it kind of washes out your rows and crops, and then you're breaking tractor axles going across them, and you're losing your topsoil. One of the easiest things to do is just change the direction of how you plant your crops. So instead of having them go straight down the field, have them go horizontally, and then water flows across them to help water them instead of washing them out. And that's contour farming. It's really helpful for the environment. It's really helpful for the farmer. It saves your crops and land. So that one's excellent to do. If you're a dairy farmer, one of the best things for streams is to keep cows from walking into them, because then sediment gets drummed up, and the cows themselves are defecating in the water, and then you have that pollution issue. But even if let's say I hated the environment and I didn't care about helping it at all, I would still fence off my cows from the streams, because cows drink the water that they're standing in, and then it makes them sick, and it increases the somatic cell count in dairy milk to have the pollution, because the somatic cell count means that the cow is fighting off some kind of bacteria, and that's really bad for dairy production. You want a low somatic cell count. So if I were a dairy farmer, I'd be fencing off my streams.
Great, thanks. Can you talk a little bit about the actions that the BAY program and other businesses are doing to combat climate change?
Yes. So the BAY program has committed to addressing climate change in the watershed by continually monitoring and assessing the trends and likely impacts of changing climatic and sea level conditions on the Chesapeake Bay ecosystem. So that includes the effectiveness of different restoration and protection policies, engaging in programs and projects with our partners through the work groups, and looking to the future. So what can be done better? So pursuing, designing, and constructing all of those projects to help the Bay and our land and aquatic resources. If you're interested in that kind of thing, we've got all of our work groups for the Bay program focus on a different area, and you can look those up on the Chesapeake Bay program website, and even contact some of the members if you've got questions about specifics.
And what about the businesses for the Bay members?
Businesses for the Bay, well, we just did a whole year-long series on the wonderful things that our Business for the Bay members are doing to help the whole Bay watershed. So you guys are protecting lands, you're planting streamside buffers, you're creating living shorelines to combat sea level rise, you're helping to restore wetlands, which are going to help with flooding and damage from storms, you're turning off the old fluorescent bulbs in your offices and updating those to LED lights, which help the environment as well as make it a much, much better environment for the employees themselves. I used to work in corporate, and when they changed those lights in our offices, they were doing it because it was going to save them money on energy costs. But I would say the whole office, like immediately, everyone felt a lot better because the light itself is better. It saves money for the business, and it helps the environment. So you guys are doing things all over the place, and I would say watch the other 4 recorded webinars for some of the other actions.
Didn't we do one just on climate change?
We did indeed.
And is that up on the Businesses for the Bay website?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. So here's a different question. Do we have any thoughts about how regenerative agricultural practices can help with long-term resource sustainability?
We're getting into some technical industry terms. So regenerative agricultural practices, I would say that goes along with permaculture, another one of those industry words. What that actually means is that you're looking at the whole ecosystem. And our Business for the Bay members are doing that already because obviously they care about the business and they care about the economy because they are a business, but they're a B4B member, which means they care about helping the environment and helping the community at the same time, which also helps, the social image. So regenerative agriculture and permaculture is helping, you're still going to have agriculture, so you're using that land, you have tangible profits and benefits that are coming from it, but at the same time that you're doing those agricultural practices, you're helping to restore the land that you're using, so you're improving the environment at the same time. Many of the practices that we include, we refer to as best management practices. That's conservation tillage, cover crops, crop rotation, composting, no-till farming. Those are all things that we use. These best management practices can be credited in a Chesapeake Bay program's watershed model. So it works towards helping your state meet their pollution reduction goals under the TMDL. If you've ever heard that phrase, it's the total maximum daily load. So that's how much pollution is in all these different areas and working to reduce those. So there's definitely a benefit to implementing all these practices outside of the benefit that they have to agriculture and the business itself.
Great, and I think we have one last question, and that is, if you're a Watershed Association, what can you do in regard to advocate to help conserve lands?
Get involved. So that's really all I need to say, but connect with the local government, connect with the local officials, work with the other businesses. So if you're a B4B networking partner, get into that networking. Get to know some of the Business for the Bay members. Find the ones that are in your area. Look at what you've about as a watershed organization and how can you connect that to a local business. So local business, they're taking the time to look into what needs to be done, how can I help. Watershed organizations are in an even better space to be able to help with that than the business. So in that networking role, reach out to those B4B members, get involved with the local government and your local officials, and look into conserving land through different methods. So whether you're purchasing the development rights so that it can't be developed, or you're doing land donation, or setting up a conservation easement, if you're looking at publicly owned lands, or you want an area to recreate, or you want to conserve land through parks, there's a whole lot of different ways to get involved. So advocate for smart growth and low impact development that's still going to help the community at large, the business community that lives there, and the environment that we're all a part of.
Great, thank you so much. I don't think we have any further questions.
Great, thank you, Rachel and Caitlin, for that inspiring presentation, and many thanks to everyone for joining us. Sorry, this is Corinne. This is why Rachel was reading the questions instead of me. My voice is going away. This is a friendly reminder to please fill out your survey that you'll receive via email. And please visit our website to download slides and listen to all 5 of the 2018 webinars in the series. I'm going to put that exact link in the email that I'm going to send out to everybody. It was also in the chat box. And thank you again, and have a wonderful afternoon. And stay dry if it's pouring where you are, just like it is here in Annapolis.